If you want to pump your body and expand your mind, there's only one place to go. Mind Pump. Mind Pump with your hosts, Sal DiStefano, Adam Schaefer, and Justin Andrews.
Hey. It's Mind Pump time. In this episode of Mind Pump, we talk a lot about fitness, but in the first 41 minutes, we do our introductory conversation. Here's what we talked about. I mentioned Doug and Adam's bright white legs. Looks like they need some sun. They're exposing them because they're wearing the new Vuori shorts. Now, Vuori is the company that makes the best athleisure wear that we've ever found. It looks phenomenal, and we have a discount for you. Here's what you do. Go to vuoriclothing.com. That's VUORI clothing.com/Mind Pump, and use the code that you see on that page for 25% off.
Vuori.
Adam then brings up a new IPO that's coming out, Watches of Switzerland. This is an interesting one. The company apparently is worth over $1 billion, and I had no idea who they were.
We're watching watches over here.
Speaking of billionaires, Jay-Z, the first billionaire, I think, in hip-hop. Is he the first?
Yep.
Insane. Then we talked about Warren Buffett's $4.5 million lunch. No, the lunch didn't cost $4.5 million.
That's expensive.
That's how much it costs just to sit with him at the lunch. That's insane. Then I talked about the hoarder that we have here in the studio, Justin, stealing all the...
You call me a whore?
Stealing out all the peanut butter skinny dipped almonds, you fucker. Now remember, skinny dipped
so good.
Almonds are almonds with a thin coat of chocolate, and it's amazing. The macros are really, really good. It is the snack that we recommend to fitness competitors in particular. And we have a discount for you. Go to skinnydipped.com/Mind Pump, enter the code Mind Pump, and you'll get 20% off. Then I talked about, let's see if I can say this word this time, the disposability of men. Did I say that right?
Close, very close.
Disposability. Why am I saying it weird? I don't understand.
I don't know. You made it weird.
I know. Once I make it weird, it's over.
Yeah.
Anyway, we talked about why men are disposable, evolutionarily speaking. Then we talked about the sperm from a deceased son. No, it's not a weird porn. This is actually what happened. We talked about raising our own clones. That's how narcissistic we are.
Natural transition there.
And our insecurities in raising our children. Then we get you back with the heartstrings there.
There it is.
Then we get into the fitness part of this episode. The first question, what is the difference between MAPS Prime and Prime Pro? Remember, MAPS Prime is our program that teaches you how to get your body warmed up properly for your workout. Prime Pro is all about correctional exercise. And what we do in that part of the episode is we talk about the programs, but more importantly, we talk about how you can get your body ready for your workout better, regardless of whether or not you have the program or not. Next question, how do you get through the times when you can't get access to good food? Let's say you're on a trip, there's not a lot of healthy food around you. What are some strategies? Next question, this person is a former gymnast. They value flexibility, but they'd also like to know when they can train their flexibility. When's the best time that will not impede muscle growth? Is it before the workout, after the workout, or on rest days? And the final question, this is a personal trainer from LA Fitness who only does 30-minute sessions. How can they put together the best workout for the clients in just 30 minutes? It's not HIIT, believe it or not. We talk all about how to take that 30 minutes and maximize it for their clients. Also, this month, MAPS Strong is 50% off. Now, MAPS Strong is the MAPS program inspired by strongman training. So what does that mean? That means you go to your normal gym that has barbells, dumbbells, benches, and all that stuff, and you do unconventional lifts. You work on strength and stamina because, remember, competing as a strongman requires both. But this program is suitable for everybody. It is a posterior chain heavy program, so if you want to develop a strong back and a strong and round backside, this program is definitely for you. Again, it's 50% off. Here's what you got to do. Go to mapsstrong.com, MAPSSTRONG.com, and use the code STRONG50, STRONG50 for the discount. Do it now because this promotion will be over this month. You know what's cool about the weather right now? At least for you guys. For you guys, it's really cool.
What's up?
I'm really excited for you guys.
For us, but not you?
Yeah, well, I've got that natural tan. And I see, Doug and Adam walking in with their Actually, nice looking Vuori shorts you guys got on right now.
Thank you.
And
Just gotta work on those calves.
yeah, and I'm like, I can't tell where the socks end and the legs start. You know what I'm saying? The white on white.
Wait till I unleash mine to the world.
No, don't.
It's like a beacon of hope.
They can see you from space. Yeah.
Doug is what are you rocking, Doug? You have the different shorts than me.
Yeah, I got the core shorts.
You like those ones?
I like them a lot. They're they have a little bit of stretch to them. They have a little liner in there, but not one that grabs you too hard. You know what I'm saying?
You like to be nestled in the lining.
Yes, I feel very nestled.
No, those are.
Now, do you wear because they have a liner? Do you wear underwear in those, or do you free ball?
Wow.
No, I'm wearing underwear.
That's a personal question.
That's very personal. Yeah.
I'll swim in those. The ones that
these are swim shorts.
Yeah, I'll swim in them, or I'll wear them around.
They're good for day to day.
Yeah, you can kind of dress them up, or you can jump in the pool with them. That's what's kind of cool about those.
What are the ones you have on?
I got the Banks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the Banks they're a little more formal. They don't have the lining inside of them, so they look a little bit more, I don't know, dressy, you could say, for shorts.
Yeah, you can't free ball in those.
Yeah, no, you don't want to do that.
You sit down and
it'd
be
way too breezy. Justin would like that, right?
I would.
You'd like it. I sit right across from you.
No, we don't want to see red beard. You know what I'm saying?
Red beard.
Hey, the drapes match the curtains, right?
If you were a pirate, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm excited.
Red beard.
Be breezy.
Manhattan Beach is gonna be beautiful, man. We got a beautiful week ahead. I know up here we got all high 70s, even 80s all week long, which I imagine will be pretty close to that down there in LA, Manhattan Beach area.
Dude, every time we do those events, I come back with like $300 worth of more Vuori clothing. Every time.
Such an easy thing to do.
Their stuff is, and I'm not just saying this because I'm obviously being paid to say it. I love their shit, man. I wear it all the time.
Well, everybody in the room right now literally has Vuori on. Even I think Justin has the least with his hat, but everybody has something on right now.
Yeah, it's funny because
still there.
I'm looking at pictures from the last like 6 months. I'll go through my phone sometimes and look at pictures and be like, oh yeah, I remember when I went there. And then I noticed I'm like, every single one I'm wearing Vuori clothing. Yeah. Like I've gone above and beyond.
I think
they're hugging our bodies.
I think that their sponsorships getting paid just by us.
Buying all their stuff. Maybe.
They're like, these morons, we'll keep paying these guys to talk about our shit.
Hey man, I don't care. If it looks good and it's comfortable, I'm down.
Yeah, I'll rock it all day.
They're the business. And I'm excited, man. I can't wait to get down there.
What was the IPO that we were bringing up earlier?
Oh, the Watches of Switzerland. So keep your eye out on that. There's a company that was bought like 7 years ago for like $200K or like $200 million, and it just opened, and it opened up, and it's evaluated now at $1.1 billion. And it's just a place where you can buy like Rolexes and Breitlings and Panerais.
What do you mean a place like an online?
Yeah, they're an online business. I mean, right now, if you looked at like their Instagram, they're only like 20-something thousand followers. So for a $1 billion company, it's only got about 20,000 something people that are watching them on Instagram. But it's a Switzerland-based company that is basically resells watches like Rolex and Breitling and things like that.
Resale?
Is that a discount?
They're used.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
yeah, so it's really popular for someone to take like a watch like this, and after 20 years of wearing it, 10 years of wearing it, or they need money, and so you trade them in because they hold their value.
Yeah.
So what's the? That's what I was just going to ask you. How well do they hold their value?
It all depends. So like the Daytona that I have on right now is limited edition. So I remember like 3 years after I had bought it, I went and checked it. I went to see if I were to trade it in. I could actually get more money for it used than I bought it for. So some of them go up.
Interesting.
Like so, if it's a limited edition or a very rare or sought after model, then it could potentially go up. It's just like a classic car, right? Like a classic car is the same way too. Like some models are sought after. There's only so many of them, so they're worth a lot of money. They actually can go up in value.
Is that somewhat predictable? Like, can you see which ones you think will probably go up in value or not?
Kind of. Like, you look at like when the Rolex Pepsi edition, which is the blue and red dial, when that came out, the limited green.
Pepsi, like the Pepsi Cola?
Yeah, they just it's not Pepsi did anything with them. It looks like Pepsi Cola because it's got so it's called that, right? So they'll have like a limited edition. They had a Tiffany's a Daytona that came out that was like 75,000. So all these different watches that are limited editions, like you can sometimes get.
So it's literally just an online store for used high ticket watches.
Yeah.
Wow, and it's worth $1 billion.
1.1 billion.
And they're going IPO. Mm-hmm. Wow, that's interesting.
Stock's
that's
already risen by
fascinating.
17%. No, it's just a cool business. It's something that I watch. Like I watch these watches all the time. Like I follow a lot of different pages.
Watching
And
watches.
so I was familiar with the company, but I didn't know that it was going public. And man, the amount of money that it's already. I mean, it was just a few years back that it was only worth $200 million.
It's so interesting because obviously watches, the function of a watch is to tell you the time, but nobody wears a watch really for that anymore, do they? You have clocks everywhere. You have your phone, your cell phone.
No, you're good.
It's purely a fashion accessory. I mean, it has been since day one, but the fact that there's nobody really needs
It's the only jewelry for men that I would even consider.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Besides a pinky ring.
Well, yeah, that
would be the only
my belly button ring. I mean, we won't talk about that. Yeah.
You have to have the pinky ring.
or your
imagine
tongue ring that you have.
Yeah.
Speaking of money, Jay-Z,
Function.
did he just enter into a new category?
First rapper to hit $1 billion, man.
Now he has, where he makes his money is, there's a lot of different places he makes his money. It's not just his music, obviously. I mean, I read somewhere his real estate investments are like $100 million.
His business itself isn't worth. I mean, it's nowhere near the top of his other things. Like, so he's got alcohol investment, tech, famous artwork, which I think is really fascinating right now. Real estate, and then his own personal brand. That's what makes up the $1 billion.
Yeah. So what was that company that he owns? That's like a streaming service for music.
Oh, he's trying to go heads up with Spotify, and I don't know the name of it.
It's like
Tidal.
Tidal. Thank you, Doug. It's like high fidelity or
high definition.
High definition, music. So like you get more like jazz musicians and like different so you could really hear the crispness of the sound. It's for real like audio geeks. Like
is he the most I don't know what the right word would be, valuable person in hip hop, or is Dr. Dre?
No. He's number one.
Passed
no rapper has ever reached $1 billion.
Right.
Oh wow.
Dre was on the.
He was close, right?
Dre was when he sold Beats.
That's what I was thinking.
It put him on pace to be the first one to do it, but Jay-Z's been on the climb for a while now and just passed him up.
And he's still with Beyonce.
Yeah.
That's a power couple right there.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of power that they have and money.
I would imagine that helps too, because she's supposed to be I remember when we were talking to Mark Mastroff when he said he was having dinner with them, right? He was talking about how badass she is too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's insane. It's cool to see people take something and spin it into something else. You know what I'm saying? Like Jay-Z had some music that did very well, but that wasn't even close to his potential. Like the music was
he kept reinvesting. I mean,
that was the beginning
really
of
smart
it. Everything else was what took off.
Well, we went through this, like, I don't know, would you say 80s, 90s, maybe even I think 2000. I feel like was when this started to change, where like musicians, athletes, were notorious for getting filthy rich, doing tons of drugs, buying tons of cars,
going bankrupt.
Yeah, going bankrupt and losing all their money. And I think that enough people have heard that now and know the percentage. Like, it's crazy what I remember on the podcast years ago, I read the stat on NFL players that end up going bankrupt or whatever with that. It's ridiculously high. Like,
it was alarming.
Yeah, it's like 75, 80%. Like, that's crazy. Like, a majority of them end up going bankrupt, which that just shows you like how bad that was. Where now I think they're all savvy to that. So, and I know like the NFL does like courses now for the first like week or month that they get into the NFL, where they kind of talk to them about being smart about investments and don't just go throw your first $1 million at your best friend who wants to start a restaurant and all that stuff. And they kind of try and help them out.
It happens a lot with athletes and artists because
it's quick money.
Yeah, it's fast money.
You could go from being on the street, not making very much, or not having very much money, then all of a sudden fucking a millionaire.
Exactly, and all of their time and energy has gone into developing a particular skill, and once the public has lost its interest in that skill, or that skill no longer has value. Like, if you're an athlete, you have a shelf life, especially if you play football.
It's not only that. So I was having this conversation. So I have a good buddy who, crazy story, but won $6.5 million and really is never made that much money. I've never had very much money at all our whole lives. And we were talking about some of the habits that he has right now. Like, as soon as he got it, like he took like 20 something of us in a stretched limo up to a suite, and it was just crazy. It was like a $40,000 night, like right away. And I was telling, he's like, dude, do you think he's going to blow all his money? I said, I sure hope not. He's a good friend of ours, and and I know he's invested I think he invested $2 million right away. I said, but that doesn't mean that he won't continue down that path. And I said, in fact, what you see is and you talk about this a lot with health and fitness journey, how important the journey is. Mm-hmm. There's something about reaching new milestones financially that teaches you new lessons, which is, we see this all the time, right? How many people do you know that the wealthier they are, the tighter they are with their money, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of that's because they've learned practices over years of like, shit, it's not easy to make millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. So
they know the real value of it.
Right. Yeah. And they know how hard it is to get to that point. And so they do have a different value system with it.
It's not just that, it's the behaviors that are needed to earn that money, are behaviors that are similar to the ones you need to keep that money oftentimes. And if you never learn those behaviors, if you're just you're some kid who's places all their time and energy in playing a sport, your behaviors around, being good at your sport, you've never learned the behaviors around earning money, investing money, how to save it, where to spend it. And so then all of a sudden you're getting paid tons of money because of your talent and your hard work for your sport, but you have zero understanding of how to manage money or what to do with it. And that can be a recipe for disaster. You see this, you see this even in business sometimes when people fall into, sometimes the market has malinvestment where, for example, the housing crisis, before that happened, you had some policies that made it a very, dare I say, easy place to make money. Like if you had some sales skills and you were somewhat responsible, you could get into home financing and you get in the right area, like the Bay Area. And I knew schmucks that were making, deep six figures, $500,000 a year, just because they fell on the right moment, the right time. I have a buddy who was making $750,000, and then the housing market crashed. He went from making $750,000 a year to making less than $70,000 a year, all within 1 year. And it devastated him because he never, the money that he did make, he was blowing it on everything. So he's left with nothing.
Yeah.
It was a terrible situation.
Well, speaking of crazy money, did you guys see the Warren Buffett lunch?
Not what?
It was he auctions I think he does this every year. He auctions off, which I believe the money goes to a charity, I believe is what happens with it. He auctions off a lunch with him. And so it went for $4.5 million.
Wow!
To sit,
wait, to have lunch with him.
Each ticket?
No, one ticket.
One ticket.
One guy. Ticket was $4 million.
To have.
Was this a CEO of another company, or who was this?
Justin Sun, who's the owner of the 11th largest Bitcoin Tron.
Oh.
And that's what's kind of cool about this lunch, and why I find it interesting is because Warren Buffett has openly come out and talked against Bitcoin since the beginning.
Yep.
In fact, part of why I think half the people are still like on the, I don't think it's going to happen, is because of Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett has such an influence on the market. And when someone like that comes out and says, nah, Bitcoin ain't going to happen. Nah. And so he's been anti-Bitcoin. So this guy, Justin Sun, is now having a lunch with him, who is creator of the Tron Bitcoin, which is the 11th largest one. So it'll be a very interesting lunch, or to hear what happens after.
So this crypto pioneer paid $4.5 million.
Yes.
To have
wow. So this auction just happened. The lunch itself hasn't happened yet?
Lunch hasn't happened yet. The auction just happened. He won it. And
that'll be an interesting conversation for sure.
Yeah, what's crazy about, you're right, Adam, about people with that much influence, Warren Buffett can do a single tweet and cause
the market to move.
It to move.
Wow.
Just one thing, like I
don't like this.
Tesla's an interesting company. Not sure if I'd invest in them. Boom, stock trend. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
These guys fuck with each other all the time with that, right?
Of course.
These big investors will try to
was
fuck
it
with
one
each
of
other.
the Kardashians like said something like, "Oh, this is lame," like some tech thing, and then it just dropped like.
Was it Snapchat or something like that?
Snapchat.
Yeah.
Like crashed their stock.
She talked shit about him, and she said Snapchat's dead, and then clicked off.
And they died.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Like, what the? How dare they have this much power?
Oh yeah. Speaking of power, I was in the back there because you guys know my boy's working right now. I was in the back there, and I was like, "Hey, you want a snack, buddy?" And he's like, "Sure." I'm like, you know what he would probably like? The peanut butter chocolate skinny dipped almonds.
Oh, no.
And guess what I didn't find, Adam? Remember, we had like 10 bags.
That's not me, bro.
Bro,
Yeah, who do you
we
think?
didn't have 10 bags.
There was
dude.
a
It
lot
like
of bags.
4.
Justin.
10?
I'm just saying.
10 guy?
Listen, okay, I had to make sure that I stocked up because every time I go in there, like all that's left is the raspberry ones. I know Sal loves them.
Taylor loves those ones too.
I need the peanut butter chocolate. Dude.
Yeah,
That's my fix.
We're all such sharing, giving people, but when it comes to fucking,
I've learned what I have to do now. This is like survival mode.
become a bunch of scarcity
This
fanatics.
guy, peanut butter and cheese, man.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to make you, a peanut butter and cheesecake.
Let's keep adding to
Peanut
that
butter
list.
cheesecake coming your way.
No,
Yeah.
I opened the back and I'm looking. There's other bags of other flavors, mostly raspberry. Thanks, Justin.
Yeah.
And I'm looking and
problem.
I'm like, where's the peanut? What the fuck, man?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh,
No, I took them all home because my kids love them too, and it's one of those things where
these your kids.
come on, man, I have to use my kid. I eat a lot of them. I'm not gonna lie.
You know you're not giving them to your
I'm not
kids.
lying, dude. They eat some. They find them, and I get pissed. But yeah, they still
See,
get
I
them.
told you.
So whatever that means, but I bring them home because it's like there's no treats in my house. That's like as close as we get. So yeah, I enjoy those every
Trying to
now
make
and
me
then.
feel bad. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, I got kids too,
I got kids, man. I got kids. I gotta feed them.
but they're not getting any.
No,
Gosh damn it.
no, they gotta fight for them,
Yeah.
just like I fight for them here.
Yeah, dude. Speaking of fighting, there was this article that was shared yesterday that got me a little hyped up, and it's about the title of the article is "Considering the Male Disposability Hypothesis." Anyway,
Wow,
it
it's
talks
easy
about
to say.
yeah, I know, I can't say it right now. It talks about how men are, we throw them out in the battle. More of them are murdered. If a man and a woman perform the same crime, men are typically punished much more harshly. Blah blah blah. Wah. And it's funny. Underneath this article, this was posted on Facebook. I haven't done this in a long time, but what I used to do back in the day is I would comment under an article and see if I could get into a discussion with someone. And that's oftentimes how I learn. And so I get on there and I comment and I said, a lot of the behaviors that we have towards each other come from evolution. And said, evolutionarily speaking, men are far more disposable than women. And boy, did I get a bunch of pissed off dudes coming after me. And I'm like, it's true, dude. I said, listen, the reason why we say things like, women and children first when like a ship sinking, right? Women.
Yeah.
You think it's all about dudes trying to act tough, which it's sure there's that piece also, but it comes from evolutionarily speaking. If you have a society and you lose 90% of the men, let's say there's a war and 90% of the men die. So you have
one man
10%.
One man can impregnate 100
Yeah, all
women.
you
That's
need
what
is
I'm
that
saying.
one stud bowl.
Your society will survive. It's not going to be a problem. You eliminate, I don't know what the number is, but it's something like 50% of the women or something like that. You're screwed. You're done.
Yeah.
Because women obviously can only have one birth every 9 months or every 10 months or whatever after she recovered. And so men we have always been more disposable, which is probably why we treat, why these behaviors have happened throughout all these societies where, we say that like women and children first, protect the women, protect the children. Guys go out there and, donate your body or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and it was an interesting debate and discussion, but you had a bunch of guys who were like, yeah, men are more homeless and we have all these more problems. I'm like, yeah, I get that. I'm like, but nature evolved that way. Like it takes more risks with men. And it's true. If you look at all the risks that evolution takes on men, we tend to suffer more from higher rates of things like mental illness and stuff like that. And it's because nature can roll the dice more. They've got to be safer with the women.
I've never heard of I've never thought of the statistic for men being, there's way more homeless men than there are women.
Far more.
And without even seeing the stat, now that I'm like recalling, I'm like, man, it's rare that I actually see a homeless woman. You see homeless men all the time.
Yeah.
Why is that?
And they've done, because instinctually, I think, and societally speaking, we view men as being tougher. They can handle more probably, we think, right? Oh, they can handle more of the elements. But I think also evolutionarily speaking, there's that instinct in us that it's like we need to, if the women die, we're all done. Like we're going to end. Men they can die. So we tend to like women tend to get more money when they're homeless, or more food, and children, of course.
Do we count this in the gender pay gap?
No, that doesn't.
That's bullshit, dude.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Dang. I'm not, and I'm not making the case for like one against the other.
Yeah.
But this is just the truth. Evolutionarily speaking, this is why our attitudes towards men in some of those cases are that way. It's just why men went off to battle. Mm-hmm. Sure, the physical strength aspect, but nowadays it's less and less of an importance because of modern technology. But again, you don't want your women to go off and die, because then you can't procreate enough to sustain.
Yeah, it's just funny that we have to like dance around subject matter like that, where it's like we can't state like what we see anymore. Like it's too politicized, and so this was a man's group that was like supporting men's rights.
It was just and it was just what's happening right now is, and I know why there's all these pissed off guys, is that the other side has gone so extreme.
Yeah,
and is you have this small minority that's very vocal, that's blaming men for everything, and it's doing is it's awakening its opposing extreme side. So now you've got all these dudes who were like, men, we're the oppressed ones, and men, we need to, be man, and all that shit. It's like, all right, calm down.
Yeah, the only thing I see, and again, and I kind of, I dismiss a lot of like the whining, complaining stuff I read and see from that camp. But the one thing I do, pay attention to, like some of the laws, in terms of like having rights to your kids and things like that, where, a lot of these guys get screwed in divorce. And so like my sister-in-law is an attorney for, a divorce attorney. And so she's always like trying to get like men clients and help them out with this, because it is very tough. It's very much more leaning towards, women.
Stereotypes exist for both sides. Some of it is based in some truth, but when you look at the individual, it always breaks down. But what is the general truth, right? Men are more likely to abandon their children voluntarily. They just are. So if you look at a single parent, the odds that a single parent who has full custody, that the odds that they're a woman are far higher than if they're a man. The odds that if that men are going to be violent are higher than women, that men are going to be more abusive towards children are higher than women. And so I think we understand some of those generalities that are based in some truth, but then we apply it to the individual. So then you look at you get a divorce, and you look at this guy who's a good man, good father, whatever, but he's less likely to get the same the same judgment as the woman. He's less likely to have the visitation rights or have the custody. And if they have an argument, it's his word against hers.
Right.
Oftentimes the judge will listen to the woman, and the guy's kind of screwed. So, but anyway, it was just an interesting. Speaking of kind of along this subject a little bit, there was this crazy article that someone shared me about. So there was this young man who got in I think it was a motorcycle accident, if I'm not mistaken, and his parents had really wanted him to have a child at one point, but the guy was dying. So they got approval to extract sperm from their dying son.
What?
And they're using it.
Dying or dead?
He was dying, and now he's probably dead.
Okay.
And now they're using it to make themselves a grandson.
It's kind of weird.
A little bit, right?
It's like, that's creepy.
That's a little weird.
Isn't that a little bit weird?
What's the story sound like when Grandpa sits down with his kid?
I know that's weird, huh? How did my dad or whatever?
And did he have a girlfriend or somebody in mind, like at the time, or is this like
they sent it to a bank?
I don't know exactly, but it says here. So they got the sperm from him as he was dying. Then he died, and then they had to ask the court for permission to use their late son's sperm to produce a child, and they picked a male sperm because they wanted a male heir or whatever. How weird, right?
Yeah, that's like just my mind's blown.
I mean, that's
I don't know how to respond to that.
Yeah, modern science, but
just a normal
new things that you wouldn't even have thought of.
Normal family, famous, anything about him?
No, I mean the kid was apparently he was a West Point cadet. He was it was a skiing accident is what happened. He always dreamed of having children or this and that or whatever. No, other than that, there's nothing too crazy about it other than the fact that he was dying and they took his sperm and now got court permission to make themselves a grandkid.
Wow.
How wild is that?
And so are they planning on raising this kid? Or?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I mean,
okay.
I'm assuming that he if he was dying and he wasn't dead yet, he gave the approval, and then in that case, I wouldn't. You probably want it too, right? I mean, if you were going, especially
Yeah,
Now, if you had a
I wouldn't have
partner-
thought of this.
somebody like, let's say me, right? Who before, I mean, obviously I have a kid on the way, but if I didn't have a kid on the way and I had a skiing accident and I was about to go, and Katrina's like, I want to have your son, I would say absolutely, take it from me. Yeah, I don't think with no hesitation. So, I mean,
but you have a partner and everything.
well, that's what I'm.
He didn't have it. They just.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it didn't. It said that they didn't say anything about that.
Fuck. Well, I mean, even then though, I guess if my parents came to me and I'm maybe the last male Schaefer, and we want to carry the name on,
Well,
and
this is the beginning, man.
Exactly.
This is the beginning.
Exactly.
Like think about now too. Loved ones that are passing. You just get their DNA.
Clone them.
You clone them. I mean, that's not. In
Oh
the,
my God.
That's not in the distant future anymore.
I know.
That's crazy.
What about super narcissistic celebrity wealthy people, which a lot of them exist,
Right.
wanting to
Clone themselves.
have their own, have themselves as their child. Like, I'm going to clone myself and raise myself.
Because I'm awesome. I am awesome. Oh, look at you, little Justin. I love you.
Could you imagine? Seriously. Listen, I'm going to tell you something. This is the truth now. Justin, I know you understand this.
Yes.
Part of there's this interesting narcissism that happens when you have your own kids. Like, parents love to hear about how much their kids are like them, even if it's a shitty thing.
Yes.
Like, oh, your son he pees on the floor like you do on accident. You're like, that's my boy. There's a part of
The last thing you want to hear is that your kid looks like your significant other or like somebody else in your family,
or nothing,
not you.
or nothing like you.
Yeah, or like your in-laws or
It's totally different than me.
the
right?
milkman.
yeah,
or
or
whatever.
like your in-laws or something like.
Yeah.
He's got your father-in-law's.
Yeah,
attitude.
exactly.
Like, fuck that.
Yeah, it's-
even if he's a cool
No,
guy.
that's my boy.
Yeah. So I mean, think about that, right? You have your kid, like Adam. You're gonna have your boy, and you'll be like, oh my god, he's just like I am. Look at this, is so cool.
Yeah.
Like it's a small step.
It's there, but it's a little.
Yeah,
But this is like full blown.
People are gonna clone themselves and just
Oh
raise
my God.
themselves.
It's totally gonna happen.
You know what I'm saying?
It's totally gonna happen. How are we gonna stop this?
What would you do if you raised yourself, like your actual self?
It would.
Wow.
Well, what would be trippy about it is
Like,
that-
I'm gonna give you the best workout.
is it would be the
Be like,
closest.
I
thing
know you
to-
like cheese.
It'd be the
Here you go.
closest thing to making you feel like you're living on. Like, I mean, if you were literally raising yourself,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I'll be leaving this body, and you got it from here, bro.
But will they have the same personality and all
I have
that?
to be, obviously.
Well,
if you
some of
clone,
it,
if you clone,
but-
well, I would think most of it because you're being raised by yourself.
But
How
what
are-
about the nurture, right? Because you got the nature there, but the nurture changes, right? Because all the variables.
Dude, how weird would it be?
I mean, you would think it would be you on steroids in every aspect,
Yeah.
meaning like
Maybe.
you would enhance every good attribute, and you would hopefully suppress every bad attribute.
Think about it this way.
Every time you mess with it, though, there's a reaction.
Yeah, because think about it this way. Like, you're an honest, hardworking, successful person, right, Adam?
It could be evil Schaefer.
What if you cloned yourself? So it's a clone of you, right?
Right.
But now he's being raised in a nice household, intact.
Right.
You guys have
No, that's a
money.
good point.
You're a good supportive father, whatever.
Yeah.
And he grows up and he's just a lazy
Super
shit.
lazy, like
Yeah.
annoying.
He'd be like, fuck. Like, I should have fucking put him through the
I'm
shit.
gonna put you back in the box. I created you.
Yeah, how weird would that be?
No,
Go to your room.
Then you realize all your own challenges are part of the reason why you're successful.
well, fuck, I realize that now. I mean, that's what I think. Hopefully, and I think parents make this mistake all the time. I mean, I know I see, and I know my uncle deals with this. But you see him with his kids, and I know he had a really rough childhood and a lot of adversity, and then was very successful. But he had kids pretty young, like in his mid to late 20s. And so I don't think he had fully, he's definitely not as wise and mature as he is now in his 60s. And I think looking back, he realizes fuck, and I've said this to you guys before, if I would have had a kid at 25, I would have allowed my insecurities to go right into my son, because I was still at that point of wanting to prove that I'm successful and wanting to show it and be it, that the next easiest thing to do. Oh, I have a 2-year-old. Oh yeah, he's rolling around in a fucking expensive bike. He's got all these sneakers. He's got all like I would have just transferred all of that into him because it's really a reflection of myself. But now I'm older and wiser, and so sure I'll have an urge to want to do that. Yeah. But then I'll stop and I'll catch myself.
But there's also a reserve, right? You're like they need struggle,
right?
There's nothing like kids to pull out your insecurities, though.
Oh,
it's so true.
It's a constant battle. Yeah.
Oh,
just like allowing the struggle or intervening.
Sometimes they'll happen, and you're fully aware of that it's coming from a place of insecurity, and you can't even stop it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? That's the crazy.
I can imagine.
Yeah. This reminds me of. Do you guys remember that it was like a documentary? I think it was on Netflix of those triplets. Mm-hmm. Those dudes that got separated at birth.
Oh, right. And they didn't know about each other.
They didn't know about each other, and it turned out to be an experiment.
What a crazy story!
Yeah, and I'm gonna spoil this for people if they haven't watched it, but watch it anyway. It's awesome. They took 3 boys, and what they ended up discovering was that these 3 boys were separated at birth. They were at an orphanage. They were separated and put into different types of households to be studied, and they didn't even know.
They were triplets, right?
Triplets.
Yeah.
So like one was in a wealthy home, one was like middle class, one was lower class.
And they were all over. Like I think this was in the early 80s. They were all over and it wasn't Ellen back then, but it was like all the talk shows.
Yeah, like Phil Donahue.
And the first time that they all got together, they were already, it was so funny, finishing each other's sentences and.
Like a lot of crazy similarities, but then there were also some crazy differences based off of the way that they were raised. And I don't want to spoil it for people, but that documentary blew me away. So yeah, raising your own self.
Now, what do you guys, what comes to mind for both of you guys when you think of like, your insecurities that you've allowed bleed into your kid, even though you know it? Like you made a statement, like Sal, you know it's an insecurity of yours. You struggle with it, and yet you still do it with your kids. What's an example?
Well,
of that?
my current difficult insecurity that I'm still working through just has more to do with around divorcing my kid's mom, and am I being a good father? Do they like being at my house? Do they like being with me? Am I damaging them? Am I doing a good job? That's the mind fuck that I'm going through right now. And it's all based on my own insecurity, which, and I identify that it's an insecurity, but it's really fucking hard, dude.
So do you catch yourself, being more lenient on something that you feel firm about because you don't want to be the disciplinary, or you don't want to be the dad who's
Totally. My household is much more regimented and strict. They have more responsibilities at my house. Part of the reason why I think I push a little bit more in that direction is because I know the leniency that they have. Their mom's a great mom, by the way. It's just much more lenient there. And when it would be different if we were both in the same house because they would be balanced, but we're not. So I think over there, they get far less responsibility. She does more shit for them. When they come to my house, it's like you got to do a lot of your own stuff. But then that always causes a little bit of a struggle, right? The struggle being both for the kids, but also for me internally, because it's like, man, they're going to come here and they hate it here because then, I'm the one telling them, wash your dish, make your bed, make sure you do this, don't do that, and you get in trouble if you don't, and you're not allowed to be on electronics, nonstop as much as you want because here I want to make sure that whatever.
I feel like you're a parent, though, and what I think is unique and really special about you is you're not the type of parent, which I think is terrible to be this way, where because I told you so. You're the type of parent that when you do things like that, and if they push back or they fight you, you sit down and you explain what you're teaching them and showing them. And even if they grumbly go do whatever it is they're doing, that
purpose behind it.
Exactly. The purpose and the conversation of you explaining why you're setting these rules in place, why you're doing this. It may bother them right now, but 10, 15 years from now, when those things play a role in their success in life later on, whether that be in relationships or organization or business or whatever, they'll reflect and look back on that because you've instilled that, and they'll
appreciate
remember
the structure.
Fuck yeah, fuck yeah.
Otherwise, there's no structure.
Right now, they might not.
Yeah. Well, that's the shitty thing about insecurities is that they defy logic. Like logically, I can sit here and talk, and I understand what you're saying is you're right, 100% right. In fact, I agree with all of it. It's in the moment when it happens, and what's funny is that and here's the life cycle of a deep insecurity. And I went through this with body image issues, which I'm way on the other end of now. It took me a long time. is before you even realize that step one is to even realize you have an insecurity. It's because what ends up happening is you just have feelings. You don't even put words to them. You just feel a particular way. And sometimes because of your fear in facing your insecurities, you strengthen the opposing side. So like body image issues, for example, before I even could put words to the fact that I was insecure about my skinny body or whatever, I had bad feelings about it, and I would strengthen the other side. Oh, I'm just working out. I love fitness. Oh, I just like building muscle. That's just whatever. And without even identifying or putting words to the insecurity. So I'm at the point now where I've identified it. Now I have to kind of work through it. But for a little while there, it's like when my kids would come to my house, and I knew they were coming to my house, I'd get anxious. I couldn't figure out what the fuck. I didn't even put words to it. I just knew I felt anxious.
Yeah.
I didn't know what it was. Now I know, like, oh, I'm anxious. Why am I anxious? Oh, because I feel like they're not going to have a good time. I feel like they don't want to be here. I'm going to have to tell them to do all this stuff. And so, but when you're in the moment, dude, it's. Now,
Justin, you don't have a situation like that with a divorce. But
but I definitely can identify with that struggle because I have that same insecurity to where like I feel like I'm always the authoritarian. I'm always the one that's restricting fun time. You know, the one that's like not taking them out to ice cream. I'm not the one that's constantly thinking of like the fun, eventful things to do on the weekend. I'm thinking about all the chores and, I'm thinking about structure and I'm thinking about, how to provide the struggle, and that's like, I get too fixated on that. And it's like, and I realize that, and I have to pull myself back out of that because it is definitely that's part of it. But really, I think the main insecurity for me that I deal with my oldest because he's a very like sweet, loving kid that like is very thoughtful and like does all these things for people, and I love that about him. But I'm always trying to toughen him up, because like it. For me, I just want to look out for him. Like I want him to like make sure that he is resilient to people that will take advantage of that, or like, like he doesn't have like a good defense like system, about him. Like I'm always like thinking about that because I felt those things as a kid too. Like I had to go through a lot of shitty experiences to realize I had to be a little tougher. You know, and like I just see that potentially happening where some kid is just going to punk him really hard, for doing something nice, and so that's. But at the same time, I want to foster it. Like I love it. Like I love that he's that considerate and loving to people. But
now,
it's like
now because you're the kind of, you feel like you're the authoritarian all the time, and which makes me feel like Courtney's the ice cream giver and the play and the easygoing. Does that cause conflict between the two of you? Like, are you like, does it bother you to where you're kind of getting onto her? Like, man, fuck, I need you to drop the hammer every once in a while. I can't always be the dick.
Yeah, sometimes, but for the most time, I'm trying to help kind of coach her up to gain more, because the thing is like it's a power struggle of paying attention and listening, and a lot of times like I'll get them to listen real quickly and then she gets frustrated like how do you get them to do that, and it's just that I say something
scary.
And then I do it. Yeah, exactly, there's that part of it too. I got tricks, but like that's it's just it's a balance between the two of us. Like it's a good balance. Like she does like have times where she'll muster up the little bit of the scare, or the little bit of just like the real firm tone of voice and like but she hates doing it, and so it's like I'm always trying to just help coach her up.
I'm curious to be that. I have a feeling that this will be Katrina and I, a challenge that Katrina and I will have. Yeah, and I say that because I see it because her and I have the two bulldogs. We got them together, right? So we've had them for 7-8 years now. Bentley's 8, right? And Mozzie's 6. And that's how they act with me and her. And so when they get sick or they don't feel good, they'll cuddle up next to her and she's always petting and loving them, and they seek her out for love and comfort all the time. But then if they're acting up or being little shits or like that, she can be yelling and they could be fighting and she can't get them to stop or anything like that. And all I got to do is like stomp my foot or raise my voice a little bit and they just
so that's some of the sacrifice, right? You see that, like she gets a lot more love, like a lot more hugs, a lot more snuggles. I'm
is
like
that what
all
the kid?
cold on the couch. You know what I'm saying?
Hey man,
it's all good. Like there's whatever. It's a balance.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of the hardest challenges is you want to protect your kids from everything, but that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't want your kid to get picked on and have to deal with that, or you don't want your kid to fall down or get hurt. You don't want them to have this challenge. And so you find yourself trying to constantly like prepare them and protect them, which is a lot of times not the right thing to do. Like, the right thing to do is to let it happen. And then when it happens, then you're there and you support them and whatever.
Right.
But man, it's a tough one, man, because you just want to wrap them up in bubble tape or whatever. You want to make sure that nobody fucks with them, and don't go over here because the kids might pick on you, and do this over here. It's like, okay, what the fuck? What are we? What's going?
We're gonna learn how to take a punch.
No, I was just.
Daddy's gonna show you.
No, I was thinking about this. I was thinking about this a lot actually yesterday because I was talking to my son on the way home, and I was telling him about when I used to work with my dad. And I remember, I think of it fondly, but to be quite honest, when I was doing it and working for my dad,
hated it.
I did. Yeah, come on, it's summertime. I'm gonna wake up at 5 a.m.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna go out in the cold and shovel shit and fucking work. And if I don't work fast enough, then I'm gonna get yelled at or whatever. And there were definitely good times and stuff. But I tell you what, that's where I learned a lot of my take care of myself type of responsibility. Because I love both my parents to death. They're phenomenal parents. My mom was phenomenal, but my mom did everything. I mean, that was like the classic stereotype of the Italian mama's boy. Mom make me my breakfast, she make my lunch, she make my, my bed for me, do all my stuff.
Cut all the crusts off.
Yeah. So then I go to work with my dad, and I'm like, I'm thirsty, and my dad looks at me like, well, fucking go find some water. What do you want me for me? You know what I mean? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'll go find some. You know what I'm saying? Like, and we'd open our lunch, and they'd be like, oh, what are you having for lunch? And I'd be like, I don't know. And he'd be like, you didn't bring anything? Like, oh shit, okay. So I gotta think
It's not
about,
just there.
Yeah, I gotta think of this guy, and I'd do some work for him, and I'd leave a mess, and he'd be like, "Do you think I'm gonna clean your mess?"
Yeah.
And there were all these guys that worked for him, and they'd all look at me like, and you feel automatically like, oh shit, I gotta like take care of myself. And I look back, and it's like, that was very, very valuable.
Yeah.
A valuable lesson for me, I should say.
Today's Squaw is brought to you by MAPS Anabolic. If you're looking to maximize your overall muscle and strength, MAPS Anabolic is the perfect place to start. With a full 30-day money-back guarantee, there is absolutely zero risk. So what are you waiting for? Go to mindpumpmedia.com and get started today.
It's the motherfucking Quaw.
Eagle has landed.
Quee-qua.
All right, our first question is from Capsy91. What's the biggest difference between Prime and Prime Pro? If I get Prime Pro, do I have a need for Prime?
I picked this question because, and not for the shameless plug so much, although it probably will come off that way. This is probably the most popular question that I get, and I think we've even talked off air before sometimes, like, did we make the mistake by naming them a similar thing so people get confused on exactly what the difference is. So.
Yeah, we actually had quite a debate when we even named the program Prime Pro, because we created Prime first, Prime Pro second, and there was a large debate as to whether or not we should even name it Prime Pro because we thought it would get confused with Prime. They are totally different programs in the sense that, so here's the deal. With MAPS Prime, the idea was to help people design and individualize for themselves what their pre-workout priming session should look like. Now, for people who aren't familiar with the terminology that I'm using right now, a priming session is, for lack of a better term, your warm-up.
Well, and I think it's important to share right here that this comes from our experience of what it looked like the first day of assessing somebody. I mean, when somebody first walks in, I've never met you before, and I'm about to design a program for you, the first thing that I want to do is assess your movement, and I want to see what you've got going on, so I can then program specific movements to address your imbalances, because we all got them. Everybody's got imbalances. It's just a fact. It's just a matter of how bad they are, how detrimental they can be to your lifting routine. And so we've broken up this in three zones that we find extremely important to test. And then from there, it points you in the direction of what movements you should do to start your workout.
Yeah. Now, some of you may be thinking, like, what's so important about your warm up or priming? Well, okay. So back in the day, a warm up, the goal of the warm-up was just to prevent you from hurting yourself, which is not a bad goal. That's actually a pretty good goal. The problem is you shouldn't just stop there. Yes, you can do a warm-up to help prevent injury, but if you want to take it to the next level, your warm-up can actually make your workout more effective. And what I mean by that is, think about the last time you did squats and how many sets it took you before you felt like you were in the groove of doing your squat, where you were like, yes, I feel like I'm connected, everything's moving right, I can push up the weight, I can exert maximal force and really reap the benefits of this phenomenal exercise. Well, with priming, if you do it properly, it'll set you up right away. Right away, you'll get into your exercise and you'll feel connected, like you're moving properly. And it's not just getting the body to move and warmed up. It's actually quite individual. So to give you a good example, a very simple example, if you're somebody that has really bad forward shoulder, and forward shoulder is literally how it sounds, somebody whose shoulders roll forward.
Which almost everybody has this.
A lot of people have this, and to varying degrees. Some people are worse than others because we work on our computers and our phones, and we don't really do lots of exercises or movements behind us. So our shoulders tend to roll forward. And what ends up happening is muscles kind of form themselves into your most common positions. So with forward shoulder, you tend to get tightness across the chest. The muscles of the mid-back are lengthened. They tend to be weakened. And your body learns how to move best in this position, this suboptimal position. So let's say you have forward shoulder and you're going to go do bench press. Well, when you're doing a proper bench press, the best form you can do is with a high chest, shoulders pinched back and down. So you have this kind of retracted scapular position. Elbows are not totally tucked, but slightly tucked to bring the bar down, press it up. That just places your shoulder in the best position to minimize injury, but it also maximizes activation of the muscles that you're using to press the weight up, and it's the best leverage that will allow you to lift the most weight. So across the board, that's the form that's going to give you the best results from the bench press. But if you have forward shoulder, which is the opposite of that, right? Forward shoulder, shoulders rolled forward, you want to be able to prime your body so that when you get under the bench press, that position is very natural and feels very good. But if you always have forward shoulder, it may take you 4, 5, 6 sets or never to get in that position. Now, as personal trainers who, after working with people for years, we started to learn warm-up hacks. Before priming even existed, I started to realize if I have this person do a movement that's going to retract and depress their scapula, if I do a cable row with really good form and squeeze back there, if I do some mobility work in the shoulders, if I get good core activation by doing some priming movements, then we get in the bench press, boom, form is good, and we're reaping the maximum benefits from this exercise. So that's what priming is, and that's what Maps Prime does.
And how do you know if you're that person? How do you know if you're somebody who has forward shoulders or what exercise you should do? That's the purpose of the
compass tests.
Right.
Yes, because it allows you to test your own body, identify what your movement patterns look like, and then you design your own priming session for your own body.
Yeah, so I think in terms of like the difference of the two, I look at Prime as mainly being like a pre-post workout protocol to optimize all your workouts the most effective way possible, individually, like based off of what it's spit out from your tests that you've either passed or failed. And so we have basically like a protocol of if you didn't pass this zone, then here's some group of exercises to work on that will help to enhance that process further, so you can squat your best, you can deadlift your best, you can bench press your best, and it's going to put you in a good position to where like now you're going to benefit even more out of your workouts. And then if you get into, so it's more like of a surface sort of we're really like trying to look from more of a bird's eye view of your movement quality and how to apply like better movement patterns, to where Prime Pro, we're taking a more below the surface, like a deeper look at like the quality of your movement, how to help enhance it so you don't have pain anymore.
Well, yeah, we looked at, with Prime Pro, we dove into every single major joint in your body, and we addressed that. And
Prime Pro is correctional. It's correctional exercise.
Yeah, exactly. This is more gear. This is like, I think every trainer, first of all, should own them both. But if you're a client that has a lot of aches and pains and dysfunction in your joints, so you have a lot of achy joints, like Prime Pro is where I recommend to all these people. Is like, you need to go and look at the joint nearest to all that achiness that you have going on and address it by doing these correctional exercises. And so it takes you through every major joint in the body, and then it has coaching tips on how to do these movements properly to make them effective and like correctional work. So,
yeah, so like let's say you're somebody who has hip pain from squatting, and you do good priming and you squat and it feels better, but it's still an issue. My hip still bothers me. You're going to need deeper correctional exercise. That's where Prime Pro comes into play. And with correctional exercise, pure correctional exercise, you're not working out a whole lot. You're doing correctional exercise. And what I mean by that is you're not doing your regular workout. So if you're somebody that's got like a chronic shoulder problem and you're just like, it always kind of bothers me, you're probably going to want to stop doing exercises, your traditional workout, for your shoulders and maybe even for your chest. Just do correctional exercise for that area, for your shoulder and your shoulder blade, from like the ones you find in Prime Pro. Do that for like a couple weeks, then go back, do your regular workout, prime properly, and see how you move. And so that's really the breakdown. And Adam's 100% right. Prime Pro is, if you're a personal trainer, that is the program that you get.
And why? Because, I mean, when we looked back, and that was another thing that we saw with the problem that we saw with a lot of the digital programs that were out there, when we talked about, you know, what did you have to, when you programmed for a client, what did you guys have to do? Probably 60% of the time. Like, rarely ever did I have a very standard, you know, program where they got to weight train all the way. Like half of the workout was correctional stuff, because my average client was 45 to 50 and had excess body fat on them for quite some time and had surgery somewhere. And so most of my clients that came to me, sure, they wanted to lose 30 pounds of body fat, but even more importantly, they wanted to feel better, and they had aches and pains. So there was many times where I wasn't barbell squatting like I would like to, because I was doing so much correctional work. And when I think of my clients, it was more common than not that I was doing correctional work with people.
And the irony is, as a personal trainer, the value that you're going to bring a client, boy, nothing brings more value than being able to use correctional exercise in a way to get them to move better and to get rid of pain.
Yeah.
If you do that, I'll tell you something
Solutions.
right now. Yeah, you get a client to lose 30 pounds, great job, congratulations. They're probably real happy. You get a client who has chronic back pain to not have pain anymore, you are God. You are a miracle worker. Chronic pain reminds you every single day. It makes life unbearable. And if you're a trainer and you understand correctional exercise, you apply it properly, wow, you've got a client for life. This is how I built all my value, was right here, 100%. The weight loss and all that stuff was easy afterwards. Oh, yeah. This was all the hard stuff, and
these clients are gold, and they stay with you forever.
Absolutely, because you solved a problem that they've probably been dealing with for 5 to 10 years, that they've seen, they've seen their doctor, they've taken ibuprofen. I used to have clients, I mean, how many times have you guys had this, where a client, you talk to them about their pain, they're like, yeah, I take 4 ibuprofen every day, and my back feels okay if I do that. Every day.
Yeah.
Every day they take it. Then you do some correctional exercise. They no longer have to take medication. Mm-hmm. Like that's seriously life-changing. But as far as priming is concerned, this is a good conversation. Besides the programs, I really want to make this point. What you do to warm your body up, that first 10 minutes to 15 minutes, depending on how much you need to warm up before your workout, can make or break your workout. It's that big of a deal. It will make that big of an impact,
especially as you get older.
It's
like it multiplies by 100 every 5 years you add to your life.
And it's not just that, especially as you get stronger. So even if you're young,
that's a good point too.
Even if you're young and you're like, I don't need, I don't have any aches and pains, but I'm, benching 350 pounds and I'm squatting 400 pounds. Makes a big difference.
Oh yeah.
Like you prime properly, you can add.
How do you keep your shoulder healthy with all this new excess of weight that now you're being able to get up?
When I first learned how to prime properly, I added 5 5 pounds on average to most of my PRs, just because I primed properly and I was able to activate my CNS better and generate more force, whatever, through the floor in a deadlift or whatever. So it makes that big of a difference. The problem is priming is very, very individual. So look at your own self. If you don't want to invest in one of our programs, look at your own self. You know where your issues are. Prime your body so that those issues are no longer issues when you do your heavy lifts. So if you have your excess curve in your low back, you have an anterior pelvic tilt, try to do exercises that strengthen the opposing. If your knees cave in or bow out too much, or you have hip issues, work on some hip activation type movements. If you have issues where your heels want to come off the floor, work on ankle mobility, priming type movements. Look at your own individual body and individualize your warm-up, and it will make a tremendous difference in not only how the workout feels, but in your progress long-term.
Next question is from Jacob J.T. Calvert. How do you get through the times when you can't access a lot of clean calories due to bad planning or just unexpected life events?
This has changed for me a lot. And then a lot of that is, and I know we've shared on the show, are like insecurities. And one of my major ones being the skinny kid trying to build muscle is I was scared shitless if I was in the middle of like hardcore training and dieting and trying to build muscle, and all of a sudden I had a 3-5 day hiatus where I was either on vacation or traveling, or would not have access to my protein shake and my 2 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and my can of tuna. And like, if I didn't have access to this, holy fuck, all that work I just did for the last month or two was going to fall right off. And I absolutely felt like that, because I feel like I would deflate, the scale would drop a few pounds. And so I would never do what I do today, which is funny because today I now obviously understand and realize that, dude, I'm not going to lose any muscle. In fact, it'll probably end up benefiting me if I just fast or go without some food, skip a few meals. There's nothing that's going to, and you don't have to completely fast, but there's days where I'll go 2-3 days in a row where I'll have 900 calories. Now, I would never recommend this to somebody who has an eating disorder or is already starving their body, but somebody who stays well-fed, well-trained on a regular basis, and then all of a sudden I don't have access to the ideal foods for me, that's where I'll just eat way less calories.
Yeah. I was so similar. You and I are very similar in that respect. I ruined a lot of vacations for myself and people around me because, like, on vacations, sometimes you're out and you're looking at stuff and you're doing things, and you ate breakfast at 8 and it's already 12:30, it's 1 o'clock. I'm with a group of people and I'm like, I got to fucking eat, man. Yeah. I'm losing muscle as we speak,
Right.
And I would piss people off because I'd have to stop somewhere and get food, or I'd have to bring a bar or powder with me, and I'd have to find a water bottle and funnel it in there and shake it up and drink my shake. And because I was so scared to go off my routine, now I'm like Adam, I realize it's not that big of a deal. I mean, if you're good most of the time, here's the thing when it comes to food. Food provides us with a lot of different things. One of the obvious ones is the physiological benefits that healthy food will bring you. The proteins, the fats, the carbs, the nutrients, the fibers, all those things are going to bring you these physiological benefits. But food you can't just relegate food to that. Obviously, look around. Food there's food culture. Part of the stuff that food brings you, and of course this can become pathological as well, so I'm not talking about the pathology, but part of the benefits and wonderful things that food brings you has nothing to do with the physiological effects, has nothing to do with the proteins, fats, carbs, and calories, has everything to do with enjoying the environment, enjoying the hedonistic value of the food. Ooh, I love the taste of this. Enjoying the people around you. So oftentimes when you're in those times, like you're saying here, where you can't get access to a lot of clean calories, quote unquote, that's probably when you should enjoy food for those other things. Like, it's probably when you're on a vacation. It's probably when you're out with friends you haven't seen in a while. It's probably when you're not in your normal routine. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Look, you're traveling and you're visiting Italy or France or Spain or Mexico. That's when it's time to enjoy the food for the culture, for the flavor, for the people around you. That's not the time for you to get on your strict regimen of got to get my grams of proteins and my fats and my carbs and my calories, and because you're missing out on those other awesome things. Now I'm talking to somebody who obviously the way the question was asked is this person's a fitness fanatic. Now the average person, they enjoy food for everything but its its actual physiological value in terms of proteins, fats, carbs, and calories. They do that all the time. That is their regular routine. The regular routine is eating food for the taste all the time. To that person, the conversation would be totally different. But if you're this fitness fanatic that's on this like super good regimen, and then you're on vacation, you're like, oh my God, I can't eat clean. Relax. You're gone for a week. Enjoy it for what you're supposed to enjoy it for.
I normally, I'll either enjoy it and eat in a surplus, or I'll restrict and just not allow myself to overindulge based off of how I went into that trip. So let's say we're going into a 3 or a 4 day trip. Let's say we're going into Manhattan, which we're going down to in 2 days. And if I have a good day, I had a good day yesterday. If I have another good day today and tomorrow, eating wise, training wise, and then I go into that, I'll probably allow myself a surplus. I know that I've been dialed in. I've actually been training really well, so I'm sending the signal for my body to adapt and build muscle. So if I overconsume and have a little extra calories, hopefully a good portion of that gets partitioned over into building muscle. And in addition to that, I'm enjoying the trip while we're down there, and I'm getting to indulge in the other values of food, like you're saying, Sal. Now flip that. I'm having a bad week. I've been inconsistent. I haven't got in the gym for 5 or 6 days in a row. I've been all over the board and map with my nutrients. When I go into that week, this is where I would probably restrict and hold back on the calories. So it all, and that's the neat part, is you have complete control of this. What I don't do anymore, though, is I don't get hung up on a couple days of either restricting calories or eating in a calorie surplus, because it's not 3 to 5 days is what making the difference between you being the cover model or not. It's like consistency and training and dieting over months and years is what really will separate that. And these little 2 to 3 day hiatus is not a big deal. Where it kills people is when you've been eating like shit, not training consistently, then you go on vacation and you just
ramp it up.
And then you ramp it up to a whole nother level. Like, well, yeah, that's going to fuck you for sure.
The only people that really should really care and be strict about eating clean when they're in, different environments, vacations, competitors,
If you're going on stage, you have an excuse. Otherwise, you're just being a dick.
Yeah, exactly.
Stop it.
And you're being a dick to yourself. And the way I look at it too is this: if I'm in, and I've done this oftentimes, I'll be in another country and we'll be walking around. Let's say we're in Italy and or maybe that's not a good example because they usually have good food everywhere. But let's say I'm in some other place. We're walking around, we're looking at things, and I know we're going to have a nice dinner. I know the dinner's going to be, it's going to have this amazing cultural experience. I'm going to eat these different foods. Maybe someone prepared it for us. But for now, we're out and about. We're looking at stuff. And then there's this little, convenience store. And everybody's like, let's just grab a quick sandwich at the convenience store. We don't need to stop for lunch because we're walking around and we'll have a nice dinner tonight. I'll skip it. It's not worth it to me. Like, okay, well, I can get a sandwich in America and it's not that big of a deal. So I'll be I'll be totally aware of what I'm enjoying from the food. And so for me, it's like some people will do that with fast food. Fast food to me doesn't really, I don't get that enjoyment from it, for me at least. If I'm going to do it, if I'm going to enjoy food for its hedonistic value, I'm going to do it with food that I really hold in high esteem because now I'm really enjoying it. And, McDonald's doesn't do that for me, for example.
Next question is from Drops of Jewels. As a former gymnast, I value flexibility. I'm only a few months into weight training and want to make sure my stretching doesn't impede muscle growth. When is the best time to deep stretch? Before working out, after working out, or on rest days?
So flexibility does not impede muscle growth. However, stretching, deep static stretching pre-lifting can dampen the CNS signal to the muscles when you're training them. So it actually temporarily weakens muscle. So if you stretch your quads really, really deep and hard, and then you go do a max strength test on your quads, they'll be a little bit weaker than if you didn't do the deep stretch. You actually lose a little bit of stability. So you definitely don't want to do your deep stretching before your workout. What you want to do before your workout is you want to prime, just like we talked about earlier in the episode. Now, that being said, there is some interesting science that supports that deep stretching post-workout may actually contribute to muscle growth. And this would be immediately after you're done training a particular body part, like chest, for example. If I just worked out my chest and I just did, 9 sets of different exercises and I got this crazy pump, doing some deep chest stretches at the very end of the workout, the studies suggest that it might actually encourage muscle growth. So I would say post-workout if you want to build muscle, post-workout is a great time to incorporate the static stretching. As far as the rest days are concerned, static stretching on rest days is phenomenal for increasing range of motion. Not so great at increasing mobility. Just because you have longer range of motion doesn't mean you're connected to that range of motion.
Well, if it's passive, and I think,
right,
yeah, I think there's ways of applying that. Even like strengthening your end ranges is important, and I feel like that's a part of the process of training people don't really focus on. But that relates more to mobility and being able to have access, to that range of motion, be able to get yourself out of that range of motion with strength. But like you're saying, it is damaging if we're deep stretching, especially passively going into a workout to where like now your muscle's going to not respond the same way and it could lead to an injury.
Well, and there's a time frame on that, and I believe once you start stretching beyond 30 seconds, right? So if you hold a stretch, like you're not going to damper or hurt your workout if you
like 15 seconds.
Yeah, you do a quick 15 seconds, or you're doing mobility type stuff that takes you through full range of motion. Like that's totally fine. That's why we encourage mobility and priming before a workout, because it is taking the muscle through full range of motion like a stretch, but you're not holding it in a static position for beyond 30 seconds.
And it's not passive.
Yeah, once you hit that beyond 30 seconds, then it relaxes the body. That's what allows you to sink deeper into the stress, which is to Sal's CNS point. So I think the answer is, enjoy your stretching, especially if you like it. It sounds like you're a flexible person. You're an ex-gymnast, and you don't want to lose your flexibility. So post-workout, get a great deep stretch, and on your off days, get some great deep stretches. And then before workout, stick to mobility and priming.
Yeah. I've been actually doing this recently, where at the end of my a body part within my workout, I'll do a deep weighted stretch. And every time I do it, I notice some results from it. I notice I get a little bit, almost feels like and I can tell I've been working out long enough where I can tell like, oh, that's doing something. And my pump intensifies is what ends up happening. I get a little bit more sore, and I feel like I build a little bit muscle. Wasn't Ben Pack big on stretching in intro workout?
Intro stretching.
Yeah. And there's some interesting studies on supporting that as a way to encourage muscle growth. There's some animal studies where they would place like a bird, their wing in this weighted stretch, and the hypertrophy that happened from it was like crazy. I
haven't played around with that yet, but it looks interesting.
Well, there's a myth that building muscle or having muscle makes you not have good flexibility. I learned that this was a myth when I saw Flex Wheeler, jump into the splits on stage. And when I remember going through Arnold Schwarzenegger's Encyclopedia Bodybuilding, the original one, Tom Platz, who possessed still arguably the greatest lower body in all of bodybuilding, he is demonstrating stretches in there, and he's legit super flexible, like splits, can fold himself, backwards, forwards, like insane. I know Ben Pack, when we went and recorded with him, we were kind of challenging his mobility.
Oh, he's dropping in a pistol squat. I was like, holy shit.
Super, super mobile. So that's a myth. It's not true. Flexibility doesn't hinder muscle growth.
Next question is from Cheney Passer. Being an LA fitness trainer, we only work with 30-minute sessions, and 2 times per week is most common. What would your game plan be with someone who is trying to lose weight or someone who is trying to gain strength?
The less that they're with you, the more that they're going to have to do on their own. So this is true for any personal training. So like if I had a client that I was training 3 days a week and they were meeting with me 3 days a week, typically that meant all their workouts were done with me and they didn't have to do any on their own. That same client, if they were to come 2 days a week, would have to do some stuff on their own. If they only came to see me once a week, they'd have to do more stuff on their own. So in the case of doing a 30-minute session with a client, you're going to have to do a good job of giving them exercises and priming movements and everything to do to get to the gym 20 to 30 minutes before their session with you, do all this stuff, and then when they meet with you, they're ready for the nuts and bolts. They're ready for the
It's an
meat and
interesting
potatoes.
thought, like going back into that environment and only having 30 minutes with somebody. Like that's tough. Like I think really educating and establishing, like you said, the ritual ahead of time for the first few sessions would be crucial, and just focusing on that of like what they do before they get there. And then also like you could kind of take them through like, the workout you had drawn up for them and coach them through each one of those exercises with just like 1 or 2 reps, then have them duplicate that. Or you could even just focus on one gross motor movement, like a squat, or, and that was the focus, is just the skill of that for that amount of time. It's just tough to do like a full workout out of that 30 minutes without just doing HIIT.
Well, that's just the 30 minutes. This is what I would do. I would spend the first 2 weeks taking them through all the exercises that I want to program. And then I would still program an hour workout. The 30 minutes that they are with me 2 times a week, they would be spent on 2 to 3 of the complex movements.
The difficult ones.
Right. So I'm deadlifting, squatting, overhead pressing, bench pressing, rowing. I'm doing the big movements with them, which will be the most mechanically demanding. And then I'm telling them after our 30 minutes, this is where you go to the machines and do some biceps and triceps and lateral raises.
The self-explanatory stuff.
Yes, the stuff that all I had to do was show them one time. This is how you do it. And then I feel good about, even if they weren't doing it perfectly, the risk of injury or the risk of even performing incorrectly is very low. But I would want to control in those 30, because in 30 minutes time, you're probably going to be able to get through either 2, maybe 3 complex movements, right? Because you're going to spend a good 10 to 15 minutes on squatting or deadlifting by itself. So maybe you get through 1 or 2 of the major movements, but then they can go do all their auxiliary movements on their own. And that's how I would program it. And if they're only coming in 2 days a week, then it's a 2-day a week full body routine. And again, like to my point, or you could still design a 3-day a week program. They're just seeing you 2 times. So it really depends on the level that I'm dealing with.
Stack those 30 minutes together, back to back.
They're obviously doing this because they're trying to lower the
cost,
the barrier to entry with personal training, increase the volume. And I always have mixed feelings about the 30-minute sessions. Part of me is. Part of me is like, okay, it's cool because we're going to get more people to get assistance, even if it's not ideal.
It's like a funnel.
I hate it. I hate it because it's
just like group class.
It encourages trainers to train HIIT all the time.
Yeah.
Because they only have 30 minutes. And so they're like, I want to get the most. I want to get
blast them.
Yeah. And they always train them in a circuit so they can get through the 30 minutes. The people are getting a hard workout and are sweating. So they think, oh, I'm getting my money's worth. Mm-hmm. But it's probably not what's ideal for a good majority of your clients. What would they be far better off is encouraging them still to come to the gym and work out for an hour. Yeah. The 30 minutes I'm going to spend with you. And even if it says 1, I mean, I could spend 30 minutes of just like, if twice a week, it's squatting in one day and then overhead pressing on the second day. And then I'm telling them to do all these machine exercises on the rest of their hour, doing stuff like that. That would probably be more beneficial than running little circuits for 30 minutes every single time they see you.
I feel bad. I don't know how people, because I've tried the 30-minute thing. I remember being in that environment, and I would always go to at least an hour to an hour and 10, just because I was trying to explain everything.
So I used them. So I was there at 24 during this transition when they actually started to introduce these half-hour sessions. Where I found value in them was and it was actually more often more experienced lifters that had they wanted me to help them with their squat.
Yeah. You just tweak little things.
They want to help with their deadlift. Like the whole half hour was dedicated to me priming your squat, showing you what you're doing well, what you're not doing well. Mm-hmm. And so I would encourage trainers to do that. Like that, if you only got 30 minutes and I see a client and I see their movement in a squat or they can't even perform a squat, and I'm going to try and explain to them the value of that, and that our full 30 minutes might be just getting them to be able to squat. Mm-hmm. And the mobility work that's involved in that, the priming that's worked in that, any sort of correctional work that's involved in that, and then teaching proper mechanics on it. Man, you take a client who's never squatted properly and you get them to squat properly, that could be 30 minutes a day for 2 times a week for quite a while. And then, but when you do, I promise you the benefits that they get from that are probably far better than what you could ever do in 30 minutes a hit for the next 6 weeks.
Yeah, because what you're probably getting is a lot of potential clients going, oh, I want to do the 30-minute session, but is that really enough time to get a good workout? And the trainer's like, oh, trust me, 30 minutes is all you'll be able to handle.
Blast you.
Yeah, believe me, 30 minutes is perfect. And then they'll take them through a 30-minute workout, and the client at minute 20 is like, oh my God, I don't know if I can continue. And the trainer's
10
like,
minutes of burpees.
Yeah, and the trainer's like,
followed by jumping jacks and then squat jumps.
yeah, and the trainer's like, oh yeah, see, told you, 30 minutes. That's all you need, man. Just buy a bunch of sessions of 30 minutes. Trust me, you can't do more than that type of deal. And you're just getting shitty training. But yeah, if you do it right, I think it can be done well, kind of like the ways we're explaining right now. Look, if you go to mindpumpfree.com, you can download our guides. They're all absolutely free. You can also find us all on Instagram. You can find Justin at mindpumpjustin. You can find me at mindpumpsal and Adam at mindpumpadam.
Thank you for listening to Mind Pump. If your goal is to build and shape your body, dramatically improve your health and energy, and maximize your overall performance, check out our discounted RGB Super Bundle at mindpumpmedia.com. The RGB Super Bundle includes MAPS Anabolic, MAPS Performance, and MAPS Aesthetic. 9 months of phased expert exercise programming designed by Sal, Adam, and Justin to systematically transform the way your body looks, feels, and performs. With detailed workout blueprints and over 200 videos, the RGB Super Bundle is like having Sal, Adam, and Justin as your own personal trainers, but at a fraction of the price. The RGB Super Bundle has a full 30-day money-back guarantee, and you can get it now plus other valuable free resources at mindpumpmedia.com. If you enjoy this show, please share the love by leaving us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes and by introducing Mind Pump to your friends and family. We thank you for your support, and until next time, this is Mind Pump.